It all starts in the life of our protagonist named Tomari Hinowa-kun, getting up at 7 in the morning like any normal student, and while studying it turns out that in the teacher's lounge someone strange was looking for him, to which a teacher immediately calls him over the school loudspeakers. So our prota gets up and heads to where he was called. He enters and a teacher tells him that it has been decided who his wife will be. Yes, just as you hear it. So he leaves the school with his new husband, since he will be the wife according to the marriage registration. Yes, just as you hear it again, her new husband is this thing that I highly doubt is an animal, because judging by its appearance I really don't identify it with any existing species. After that they started living in a house given to them by the municipality. While Hinowa was bringing in the boxes for the move, he hears a strange noise, which comes from the entrance. And is that this thing cannot enter through the door, to which our protagonist decides to help him. And suddenly they give each other a hug. The thing is, she ended up liking her fiancé's fur, but she comes to her senses and slams herself against the wall, wondering what the heck she's doing. After tidying everything up, Hinowa tells him he can rest now. The strange animal suddenly turns around and comes out to sit down, and that's when our protagonist discovers that it has a tail, and Hinowa gets kind of excited, but she comes to her senses once again, hitting the wall again. They spend time together and this strange being eats a concrete block. Hinowa, seeing this, prepares dinner thinking if she is hungry, and her fiancé, instead of eating, decides to drool. Finally it's time for their first night together, and in the early morning she ends up getting a scare from her lover. He sleeps with his eyes open. The next day she says goodbye to go to school, but the farewell was in vain since he decides to accompany him. Of course he waits for him outside, and when he enters the classroom he realizes that he is watching him through the window. There we also meet Hikurakawa, the friend of our protagonist, who reveals that he is also a wife and introduces him to her husband, which is that thing over there. Hikurakawa asks her husband if he is stressed, to which Hinowa decides to take off his hat thinking that was the cause, and suddenly the strange Pokemon attempt gets angry and wants to throw a curse on him. It turns out that he is bald, and that is why he wears the hat. Our prota asks him what happens if you get cursed, and his friend replies that you could end up bald. Even his friend confesses that every day they bathe together, but the truth is that it is nothing shady. He just takes care of his fiancée. Moving on to another scenario, the wives and their fiancés get together for dinner, and Hikurakawa ends up being bitten by this strange being. Our protagonist apologizes and tells him that he always does it before eating as a way of thanks. After that, Hikurakawa asks her husband if he should cook. Also, the next day at school, the teacher tells them that there is a new student, which is called Totsukizuka-san, and this is a rare mummy, which they decide to sit with this guy named Mokusaibashi-kun, as it is the wife of this new student. Our protagonist asks him if they get along well, and answering with a written sheet, Totsukizuka says that his wife is, since this one doesn't accept the engagement yet, saying that his standards are too high. No, poor mummy, he told her face. But deep down she loves him, as we see a flashback where Totsukizuka was trying to tie his bandages, and this made Mokusaibashi very excited. So she threw herself at him, saying she wanted to be his wife, but he wanted to know how she felt about him, so she ended up drawing his face. Moving on to other moments, a bird gets on top of his spouse's head. A few minutes pass and Jineboa becomes jealous. The four of them walk together and begin to philosophize about their lives. In Hino's case, her husband follows him all the time, such as to the bathroom, bathtub, etc. Hikurakawa becomes sad and says that her case is different. To understand this, we are going to see another flashback, where he was called by his teacher because he had been chosen as a wife. This one got very excited by grabbing her husband and kissing him until he despairs. And since then, she always runs away from him. At night, our protagonist is taking a bath while being harassed by his wife, so she decides to let him in. He comes in quickly and sits down, so Hinowa decides to wash his back and starts to get excited by his fur. After that, they bathe together and our protagonist sees her tail. Finishing excited, he decides to get out first. Drying him off, he is again fascinated by the creature's fur. A few days pass and the teacher summoned him again. this time to warn him that the municipality needs proof that they are married or else they will take away their house. All this because lately there are many false marriages. So the teacher gives him some rings, then our protagonist has no choice but to marry an animal or whatever that is. While the teacher takes pictures of him as evidence for the municipality, the point is that they really got married, and like any couple they went on their honeymoon, or so it seems. Meanwhile, the other two wives and their fiancés are talking about their future wedding. Mokusaibashi tries to put the ring on, but let's remember that her husband is made of bandages. All this was going on while our newlywed couple was walking back home together. We arrive at the mythical point of the summer vacation, which Mokusaibashi thinks of spending with Tutsikitsuka, and that is how they all enjoy their vacation together, and moreover, they go to a sanctuary which was said to be haunted. They get scared because another man was afraid of the animal, but when he touched its fur he got excited. So our prota gets jealous and tells her to keep her hands off her husband. The vacation went by very fast, and going back to school we meet Tetsuji and her two husbands. Hinowa-kun asks him why they fell in love with him, and they tell him because of his glasses. And this one has a strong competition with Mokusaibashi in sports. The vacations may be over, but now the big school events are coming up and Mokusaibashi finally faces his rival, which is Tetsuji, and they are neck and neck while the husbands are cheering from the sidelines. The two deadly rivals take it very seriously, but it wasn't enough. So his mummy gives him one more encouragement. Then Mokusaibashi unleashes his ultra instinct by winning the race. No matter the result or the rivalries, the important thing is that everyone had a great time. However, the happiness did not last long, because days later, autumn would arrive and the cold would make the creature contract a disease. And it is very common for autumn to feel like winter, especially in Japan. So the cold brings a very strong flu to both of them, so much so that they get a high fever and start to faint. But the creature takes care of him and takes him home with a prescription. When he wakes up, he realizes that Mokusaibashi and the student president Tetsuhi are at his house. They had come to bring him food and then let them rest. In the end, the next morning, they both feel better. Recall that this beast, for some strange reason unknown to us, ingests stones. So our protagonist makes him a stone heart for Valentine's Day. And he, in turn, gives her a mini heart to keep on a shelf full of stone things. Has given her the child. Hikurakawa's husband draws her a picture of a heart with her paw marks, and the mummy makes him a bandage heart, but his wife ends up fainting. By the way, if I didn't tell you, the wives are Aisho and they are the husbands. Maybe I already said it at the beginning of the video, but still, just to clarify, right? The two Cyclops with half a wing give his wife some cookies. Later at home, Hinobuha takes a nap on her lover's fur. Matter had darkened and they hadn't noticed. But the creature hugs him and sends him back to sleep. And the first anniversary of our couple arrives, making Hinobuha not stop thinking about what to do. Meanwhile, Hikurakawa was on time with her husband, but he left her every day because he went to work. And when he comes back, he brings her a hair growth formula. Remember that this Pokemon was bald. Moving on to another scenario, the redhead had nightmares, mainly where her husband disappeared, and the mummy tied him to her so that it wouldn't happen. All those moments were being remembered by Hikurakawa and Mokusaibashi while our protagonist was telling them about their anniversary. He gets up and runs outside to give his animal a hug. The next day, our team of wives together with their lovers go for a walk and decide that they are going to sit and look at the flowers of the legendary pink trees of Japan. However, a heavy rain is coming, so they are forced to go home. Shinobu tells her husband that with this wind there won't be a single flower left, and suddenly he disappears. She runs to look for him and he was guarding the tree. He tells him to stop, but he doesn't do it. But just after the rain ends, the group of friends and their partners sit down to enjoy the beautiful scenery of the trees in Japan. Besides, at that very moment they celebrate Shinobu's birthday. And that is how Jingai-san no Shomei ends. If you liked it, feel free to like, Subscribe and activate the little bell to be aware when I upload another anime summary, and see you in the next video. Bye.